Dimiral Yuna stood on the bridge of the warship Retribution, watching the stars through the massive viewing window. She had been serving in Earth's United Fleet for 23 years, and in all that time she had never seen anything that truly frightened her. Today would be different. The communications officer, a young man named Hyun, turned from his station with a worried expression. His fingers moved quickly across the holographic display, trying different frequencies and protocols. Nothing worked. New Haven Colony had missed its daily check-in 17 hours ago. That had never happened before. New Haven was a peaceful farming colony on the edge of explored space. 2,300,000 people lived there, growing food and raising families. They had children, schools, markets, and dreams of a better future. The colony had been established 15 years ago, and it had thrived in the quiet of the Outer Rim territories. Yuna felt a cold sensation in her chest. Something was wrong. She could feel it in her bones. She ordered Captain Doyen to take his fastest ships and investigate. Doyen was a good officer, reliable and brave. If something bad had happened, he would find out what it was. 3 days later, Doyen's voice came through the communication system. The sound quality was poor, breaking up with static. Yuna could hear something else in his voice too. Fear, raw, unfiltered fear. "Admiral, we've reached New Haven," Doyen said slowly. There was a long pause. "There's nothing left." Yuna's hands gripped the armrest of her command chair. "Explain, Captain." "The entire colony has been destroyed from orbit. Every building is melted slag. The atmosphere is poisoned with radiation. We're detecting no life signs. Not one." Doyen's voice cracked slightly. "Admiral, this wasn't an accident. This was deliberate. Someone glassed the entire planet." The bridge fell silent. Everyone stopped what they were doing. Glassing a planet meant using orbital weapons to superheat the surface until everything melted. It was an act of complete destruction. It left no survivors, no structures, no hope. Yuna closed her eyes for a moment. 2,300,000 people, families, children, all gone. She opened her eyes and her expression became hard as steel. "Search for evidence. I want to know who did this." Over the next week, Doyen's team combed through the ruins. They found fragments of unknown technology in orbit. The weapons' signatures didn't match any species humanity had encountered before. The forensic team analyzed everything, and slowly a picture emerged. A new alien species had done this. They called themselves the Calreth Dominion. The Calreth were warriors who had conquered many worlds. They believed that any expansion by other species was an insult to their territory. They had seen human colonists moving into the Outer Rim and decided to send a message. That message was written in the ashes of New Haven. When the full report reached Earth, the response was immediate. The Unified Command Council met in emergency session. Every military leader, every government representative, every person with authority gathered in the Great Hall beneath the Pacific Command Center. Yuna presented the evidence. She showed them images of New Haven before the attack. Children playing in parks, farmers working in fields, families sharing meals. Then she showed them the after images. A dead world, melted glass, endless silence. Intelligence Officer Minho stood and added more information. The Calreth had left their attack signature deliberately. They wanted humanity to know who had done this. They expected humanity to be afraid, to retreat, to accept their dominance. The Calreth had destroyed 17 civilizations before humanity. They thought humans would be number 18. The council chamber erupted in angry voices. Some called for immediate retaliation. Others urged caution. A few spoke of diplomatic solutions. But Admiral Yuna raised her hand and silence fell. "They killed 2,300,000 innocent people," she said quietly. Her voice was calm, but everyone could hear the fury beneath it. They didn't give warnings. They didn't allow evacuations. They didn't offer terms of surrender. They simply erased those lives from existence. And they did it to make us afraid. She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every person there. "I propose we show them what humanity does when we're afraid. I propose we show them what happens when you murder our children. I propose we gather every warship in human space and teach the Calreth a lesson they will never forget." The vote was unanimous. Earth would go to war. But this would not be a small war, a border conflict, or a limited engagement. This would be total war. This would be retribution on a scale the galaxy had never seen. The orders went out within hours. Every shipyard received the same message: prepare for maximum mobilization. Every defense station, every orbital platform, Every military installation across 200 human colonies began to activate their full strength. Captain Jiwon received her orders at the Jupiter Defense Perimeter. She commanded a carrier group with 300 ships. As she read the mobilization order, she felt her heart beat faster. They were calling up everything. Every ship that could fly, every weapon that could fire, every soldier who could fight. Within days, the reports started coming in. The numbers were staggering. Earth had been building its military for 3 centuries, ever since humanity first reached the stars. They had faced pirates, rebels, and hostile environments. They had learned to build strong ships and train excellent soldiers. But they had always held back, always kept their full strength in reserve. Not anymore. The final count came in: 700,000 warships, 700,000 vessels of every type and class, massive dreadnoughts that could crack planets, fast attack ships that moved like lightning, carriers holding thousands of fighters, stealth frigates invisible to sensors, and the planet killers, the weapons humanity had built but hoped never to use. Yuna stood once again on the bridge of the Retribution, but now she wasn't alone. Through the viewing window, she could see the assembled fleet stretching into the distance. 700,000 points of light, 700,000 weapons of war, 700,000 promises of justice. On Earth, a memorial was being built. It would list every name of every person who died on New Haven. 2,300,000 names carved in stone. At the bottom, a simple inscription: they sought peace. They received death. We will not forget. We will not forgive. We will make this right. Admiral Yuna activated the fleet-wide communication system. Her face appeared on every ship, in every ready room, on every soldier's display. She spoke clearly and simply. The Calreth believed we were weak because we chose peace. They believed we would accept this massacre in silence. They believed wrong. We do not start wars, but we finish them. For New Haven, for every life they stole, for humanity. No mercy. 700,000 ships activated their jump drives as one. Space tore open in brilliant flashes of light. The greatest armada in human history vanished into hyperspace, heading toward Calreth space. The Calreth had wanted to send humanity a message. Now humanity would send one back. Written in fire and steel, delivered by 700,000 ships, signed with the names of 2,300,000 dead. The message was simple: humanity protects its own. The journey through hyperspace took 3 weeks. During that time, the 700,000 ships of humanity's fleet moved as one massive formation. Inside each vessel, soldiers prepared for war. They checked weapons, ran combat drills, and thought about why they were fighting. Marine Lieutenant Minseo sat in the barracks of the assault carrier Dawn's Justice. Around her, 300 other Marines cleaned their rifles and prepared their armor. Nobody spoke much. The weight of their mission pressed down on everyone like a heavy blanket. Minseo had a brother named Taejin. He had been a teacher on New Haven, working with children aged 6 to 8. He had loved his job. He used to send her messages every week, telling her stories about his students and their progress. Those messages had stopped 17 hours before New Haven died. She touched the small photo chip in her pocket. It held the last picture Taejin sent her. Him surrounded by 20 smiling children in a classroom. All of them were dead now. All of them had been burned to ash when the Calreth weapons struck from orbit. Minseo wasn't fighting for glory or conquest. She was fighting because someone had murdered her brother and those children. Someone had to answer for that. Captain Jiwon walked through the hangar bay of her carrier, the Vengeance. Thousands of fighter craft sat in neat rows, each one armed and fueled. Pilots moved between them, checking systems and running diagnostics. The noise of machinery and voices echoed through the massive space. One of her wing commanders, a veteran pilot named Junho, approached and saluted. "All fighters ready for deployment, Captain." "The pilots are eager to engage." Jiwon nodded. She was a career officer who had spent 15 years in command. She had fought pirates and smugglers. She had defended colonies from raiders. But she had never been part of something this big. 700,000 ships. She couldn't even imagine that number properly. "How are the pilots handling the pressure?" she asked Junho. He considered the question carefully. "They're angry, ma'am. Everyone lost someone on New Haven or knows someone who did. But they're focused. They know this is important." Jiwon understood. The entire human fleet was running on controlled fury. Every soldier, every pilot, every crew member wanted justice for what happened to New Haven. That rage would make them fight harder, but it could also make them reckless. Good commanders would need to channel that anger into effective combat. On the flagship Retribution, Admiral Una met with her senior commanders in the strategy room. A massive holographic display showed the fleet's position and their target, Calreth Space. Intelligence Officer Minho presented the latest information. The Calreth Dominion controls 43 star systems, Minho explained, pointing at the display. Their military is organized into defensive perimeters. The outer perimeter has approximately 12,000 warships. The middle perimeter has 30,000. Their core systems, including their homeworld, are defended by another 200,000 vessels. Commander Soyon, the fleet's chief strategist, studied the numbers carefully. She was known for her brilliant tactical mind. She had planned every major human military operation for the last decade. Now she had to plan the biggest operation in history. 242,000 ships total, Soyon said thoughtfully. We outnumber them 3-1, but they'll be fighting on their home territory. They'll have supply lines, repair facilities, and defensive positions. Una leaned forward. What do you recommend? Soyon's fingers moved across the holographic controls, highlighting different systems. We don't go straight for their homeworld. Instead, we systematically destroy every military installation, shipyard, and defense station in their space. We cut off their ability to resupply or repair. We isolate their fleets and destroy them one by one. By the time we reach their homeworld, they'll have nothing left to fight with. Another admiral, an older man named Seokjin, frowned. That could take months. Maybe years. Yes, Soyon agreed, but it ensures complete victory. The Calreth destroyed New Haven to make us afraid. We need to show them that attacking humanity has consequences that last forever. We don't just defeat them. We make sure they can never threaten anyone again. Una considered this. Part of her wanted to strike directly at the Calreth homeworld, to make them feel the same terror that New Haven's colonists felt. But that was emotion talking, not strategy. Soyon was right. Complete victory required patience. We do it your way, Una decided. Organize the fleet into 7 battle groups. Each group will target a different sector of Calreth space. We advance together, supporting each other, destroying everything military we encounter. Civilians will be given the chance to evacuate or surrender. Military forces will not. The commanders nodded. Orders were distributed. 700,000 ships began to reorganize themselves into battle groups. Each group had its own carriers, dreadnoughts, support vessels, and assault ships. Each group had its own objectives and targets. 3 weeks after leaving Earth, the fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Calreth territory. The transition from hyperspace to normal space was like being born. One moment there was nothing but the strange colors of faster-than-light travel. The next moment stars appeared, sharp and clear against the black of space. Sensors immediately detected the Calreth border fleet. 12,000 ships arranged in defensive formations around 3 fortified space stations. It was an impressive force. Any normal fleet would have hesitated or retreated. But humanity's fleet wasn't normal. Admiral Una gave the order. All ships battle formation. Engage at will. 50,000 fast attack ships broke from the main fleet and accelerated toward the Calreth positions. These were humanity's raiders, small and quick vessels designed to strike hard and move fast. Commander Junho led the attack from his fighter, diving through space at incredible speeds. The Calreth opened fire first. Plasma bolts and missiles filled the space between the fleets. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers. But the human ships didn't slow down. They wove through the defensive fire, their pilots using skills honed over years of combat experience. When the two fleets met, it wasn't a battle. It was a massacre. The Calreth fought with rigid tactics and predictable patterns. They had won their previous wars through overwhelming force against weaker opponents. They had never faced an enemy like humanity. Human pilots fought with creativity and aggression. They broke formations, reformed, and struck from unexpected angles. They targeted weak points in Calreth ships with precision. They communicated constantly, coordinating their attacks in real time. 6 hours after the battle began, it was over. The Calreth border fleet was destroyed. All 12,000 ships were burning wrecks or debris fields. The 3 space stations had surrendered after their weapons were disabled. Human losses: 0 ships destroyed, 17 ships damaged. On the bridge of the Retribution, Una watched the tactical display with satisfaction. This was just the beginning. The Calreth had thought humanity would be easy prey. They had learned the first lesson. Humanity was anything but easy. One of the Calreth command ships had been captured intact. Linguistics officer Gina was brought in to establish communication with the captured crew. Using translation computers, she managed to speak with the Calreth commander. The alien was tall and heavily armored, with 4 arms and thick scales. It looked at Gina with eyes that showed confusion and fear. Through the translator it spoke. "Your fleet is larger than our intelligence reported. This was not supposed to happen." Gina leaned forward. "You destroyed New Haven. You killed 2 million innocent people. What did you expect?" The Calreth commander made a gesture that the translator interpreted as dismissive. "New Haven was a test. We expected you to negotiate or send a small retaliation force. We did not expect this. You tested us by murdering millions?" Gina's voice was cold. "Then let me tell you what you've actually done. You've awakened something you can't control. Every ship you see out there represents humanity's promise. We will never let this happen again." The Calreth commander looked out through the viewport at the massive human fleet spreading across space. For the first time, understanding showed in its alien features. This wasn't a battle. This was extinction coming for its people. Admiral Una addressed the fleet once more. "First engagement successful. All groups, proceed to your assigned targets. The Calreth wanted war. We'll give them war." 700,000 ships moved deeper into Calreth space, an unstoppable tide of steel and fire. The human fleet moved through Calreth space like a force of nature. Each day brought new battles. Each battle ended the same way: complete human victory. The Calreth were learning a terrible truth. They had started a war they could not win. Battle Group 3, commanded by Admiral Seokjin, approached the fortress world of Drethkor Prime. Intelligence reports said it was the most heavily defended position in the outer territories. The fortress was built inside a massive asteroid with weapons covering every angle. 2,000 Calreth warships guarded it. Seokjin studied the tactical display in his command center. The asteroid fortress had been built over decades. The Calreth considered it unbreakable. Multiple civilizations had tried to assault it before. All had failed. The asteroid's thick rock shielded it from orbital bombardment, and its weapons could destroy entire fleets. "They think they're safe in there," Seokjin said to his tactical officer. "Show them they're not." The human fleet didn't charge directly at the fortress. Instead, they deployed a new weapon humanity had been developing for years: siege drones. Thousands of small automated craft launched from the carriers. Each drone was equipped with powerful mining lasers originally designed for asteroid extraction. The drones swarmed the fortress like metallic insects. They began cutting into the asteroid from all sides simultaneously. The Calreth defenders opened fire, destroying hundreds of drones, but thousands more took their place. The mining lasers cut deeper and deeper into the rock. The defending Calreth fleet tried to stop the drones, but that's when the human warship struck. Captain Doyen led his squadron directly into the Calreth formation. His ship, the Hammer of Justice, was a fast cruiser designed for close combat. He loved this kind of fight. "All ships focus fire on their heavy cruisers," Doyen ordered. "Take out their big guns first." The space battle raged for hours. Calreth plasma weapons lit up the darkness. Human railguns returned fire with solid metal slugs traveling at incredible speeds. Ships on both sides exploded or went dark, crippled by damage. But the humans had superior numbers and better tactics. For every human ship that fell, 5 Calreth vessels were destroyed. The Calreth fought bravely, but bravery wasn't enough against overwhelming force. Inside the asteroid fortress, the Calreth commander watched his defensive fleet being torn apart. The mining drones had cut through 30 meters of rock. They would reach the fortress interior in hours. He faced an impossible choice: surrender or die. He chose surrender. A message went out on all frequencies. "Human fleet, we request terms of surrender. We will lay down weapons. Please stop the attack." Admiral Seokjin considered the request. The fortress still had weapons. It could still kill thousands of human soldiers if this was a trick. But destroying it completely would kill civilians inside. He made his decision. Surrender accepted. Power down all weapons. Allow our boarding parties to enter. Anyone who resists will be killed. Anyone who cooperates will live. Marine Lieutenant Minseo was part of the boarding party. She and 300 other Marines entered the asteroid fortress through one of the mining drone tunnels. They moved carefully through the dark corridors, weapons ready, expecting ambush at any moment. But no ambush came. Instead, they found Calreth soldiers sitting with their weapons laid aside, waiting quietly. The aliens looked tired and defeated. They had watched the human fleet destroy their defenders. They knew they couldn't win. Minseo's team secured the command center. The Kalreth commander was there, surrounded by his officers. Through a translator, he spoke to her. I have one request. The civilians in the lower levels. Will you harm them? Minseo thought about her brother Taijun. She thought about the children in his classroom. The Kalreth had shown them no mercy. But Minseo wasn't like the Kalreth. Humanity was fighting for justice, not revenge. Civilians will not be harmed, she said firmly. Only those who fight back will be hurt. We're not like you. We don't kill the innocent. The Kalreth commander's expression showed something that might have been relief or shame. You are stronger than us. We were fools to attack you. 14 hours after the battle began, Drethkor Prime was under human control. The fortress that had stood unconquered for 200 years had fallen in less than a day. Word of the fortress's capture spread through Kalreth space. Panic began to set in among the Kalreth leadership. Meanwhile, the other battle groups were achieving similar victories. Battle Group 5 destroyed the shipyards at Velkron. Battle Group 2 captured the military academy at Sereth Prime. Battle Group 7 demolished the weapons research station at Korval. Each victory was overwhelming. Each victory was inevitable. The Kalreth tried different tactics. They attempted ambushes using small, fast ships to strike at human supply lines. Captain Jiwan's carrier group hunted down these raiders. Her pilots were too skilled, too well coordinated. The raiders were destroyed before they could do significant damage. The Kalreth tried massing their forces, combining multiple fleet groups to create a single, overwhelming force. Battle Group 4, led by Admiral Yuna herself, encountered this combined fleet near the industrial world of Prethkor. 60,000 Kalreth ships arranged in a massive defensive sphere. It was the largest Kalreth force assembled since the war began. Their commander believed numbers would be enough. He was wrong. Yuna didn't charge into the sphere. Instead, she ordered her ships to encircle it completely. 100,000 human warships surrounded the Kalreth formation. Then she offered surrender terms. You are completely surrounded. You cannot win. You cannot escape. Surrender now and you will be treated fairly. Refuse and you will all die. The Kalreth commander refused. He believed his honor demanded he fight to the death. Yuna gave the order to fire. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it ended, 58,000 Kalreth ships were destroyed or disabled. The other 2,000 surrendered when they realized continued fighting was suicide. Human losses in the battle: 400 ships destroyed, 2,000 damaged. The loss of those 400 ships hurt. Each one represented hundreds of crew members, people with families and dreams. But those losses only hardened humanity's resolve. The Kalreth had started this war. Humanity would finish it. As the human fleet advanced deeper into Kalreth territory, they began encountering civilian populations. Entire space stations filled with Kalreth families who had nothing to do with the military. Human commanders faced difficult decisions. These aliens were not warriors. They were just people trying to live their lives. Admiral Yuna issued clear orders to all battle groups. Civilian targets are not to be harmed unless they pose a direct military threat. We are not here to commit genocide. We are here to ensure the Kalreth military can never threaten humanity again. Remember New Haven. Remember why we fight, but also remember who we are. We are not murderers. This policy confused the Kalreth. They had expected humans to act like all their previous enemies, to seek revenge through mass killing. Instead, human ships escorted civilian transports to safe zones. Human medical teams treated wounded Kalreth civilians. Human supply ships delivered food to stations cut off by the fighting. On one captured station, a Kalreth civilian approached Commander Junho. Through a translator, she asked, "Why do you help us?" "We killed your people on New Haven." Junho looked at her. "Your military killed our people. Not you, not your children. We came here to stop your military from ever doing that again. We didn't come here to become like them." The civilian seemed confused by this answer, but also relieved. Word spread among Kalreth civilians. Humanity was harsh with soldiers but kind to non-combatants. This created divisions in Kalreth society. Many civilians began to question why their leadership had started this war. After 6 weeks of constant advance, the human fleet had captured or destroyed every military installation in the outer and middle territories. The Kalreth military had lost 70,000 ships. Their shipyards were gone. Their supply bases were captured. Their defensive perimeters had collapsed. Only one target remained: Calth Prime, the Calreth homeworld. 200,000 Calreth warships defended it, along with thousands of orbital defense platforms. 300 billion Calreth civilians lived on the planet and in orbit around it. The 7 battle groups began, converging on Calth Prime. 700,000 human ships, minus the casualties they had taken, still over 650,000 vessels strong. The largest fleet in history approaching the most heavily defended world in Calreth space. Admiral Una sent one final message to the Calreth leadership before the battle. You destroyed New Haven without warning. You killed millions without mercy. You started this war believing we were weak. Now you know the truth. Surrender your military forces. Face justice for your crimes, or we will come and take what justice demands. The Calreth High Command's response was defiant. They would fight to the last ship. They would never surrender. They still believed they could win if they just fought hard enough. They were about to learn their final lesson. Humanity doesn't bluff. The human fleet arrived at Calth Prime like a gathering storm. 650,000 warships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. Their numbers so vast, they blocked out the stars. On the planet below, 300 billion Calreth watched their skies fill with enemy vessels. The Calreth had assembled their last defense. 200,000 warships orbited their homeworld in layered defensive shells. Thousands of weapons platforms dotted the space around the planet. Every gun, every missile, every defensive system they possessed was ready to fire. This was their final stand. Admiral Una stood on the bridge of the Retribution, looking at the tactical display. The Calreth defensive formation was actually quite good. They had learned from their defeats. They had positioned their strongest ships at key points. They had backup systems and redundancies. Against any normal fleet, these defenses would be nearly impossible to break. But humanity's fleet was not normal. It was justice made manifest in steel and fire. Before ordering the attack, Una sent one more transmission. It was broadcast on every frequency, in every Calreth dialect, so everyone on the planet could hear. Her words were calm and clear. People of Calth Prime, your military leaders destroyed a human colony called New Haven. They killed 2,300,000 innocent people. Men, women, and children who were farming and teaching and building a peaceful life. Your leaders did this without warning, without mercy, without cause. They did it to make humanity afraid. She paused, letting her words sink in. They failed. We are not afraid. We are angry. We are here to ensure that what happened to New Haven never happens to any human colony again. We will accept the surrender of any civilian who wishes to live. We will accept the surrender of any soldier who lays down weapons. But your military leadership must face justice. Those who ordered the attack on New Haven must answer for their crimes. On the planet below, the message caused chaos. Many civilians had not known the full truth about New Haven. Their government had told them it was a military target, that humans had attacked first. Now they were learning the truth. Their leaders had started a war by massacring civilians, and now humanity had come for revenge. The Calreth High Command, safely hidden in a bunker deep beneath the planet's surface, rejected the surrender offer. They sent their own message. They would fight to the last ship. They called on every Calreth to resist the human invasion. They promised victory was still possible. They were wrong. Admiral Una gave the attack order. Battle Group 1, led by Admiral Seokjin, struck the northern defensive shell. 100,000 ships moving in perfect coordination. The Calreth defenders opened fire with everything they had. Space filled with weapons fire, missiles, and explosions. Captain Doyen flew his fighter into the heart of the battle. Around him, thousands of other fighters wove through the chaos. His targeting computer showed hundreds of enemy contacts. Too many to count. But he had been training for this his entire career. All fighters target their carriers, he ordered his squadron. Kill their launch platforms and their fighter support dies. His squadron dove toward a massive Calreth carrier, dodging defensive fire. Doyen's fingers danced across his controls. He locked missiles onto the carrier's launch bays and fired. The missiles struck home. Secondary explosions rippled across the carrier's hull as stored fighter fuel ignited. The carrier tried to turn, to bring its main guns to bear on the small fighters buzzing around it like angry insects, but it was too slow. Too many fighters attacking from too many angles. Another squadron hit its engines. The massive ship began to drift, powerless and burning. But this was just one ship among thousands. The battle raged across millions of cubic kilometers of space. Human dreadnoughts traded fire with Calreth battlecruisers. Railgun slugs and plasma bolts crossed paths. Ships on both sides exploded into expanding clouds of debris. Marine Lieutenant Minseo led a boarding action against one of the orbital weapons platforms. Her transport ship punched through the platform's shields and latched onto its hull. Cutting torches burned through the outer armor. Her Marines poured into the platform, weapons ready. The Calreth defenders fought desperately. They knew if they lost, their world would be defenseless. But desperation wasn't enough. Human Marines had better armor, better training, and better weapons. More importantly, they had a righteous fury driving them forward. Every one of them remembered New Haven. Minseo's team fought room by room, corridor by corridor. The battle inside the platform was brutal and close. No fancy tactics here, just raw combat. After 2 hours of fighting, they reached the control center. The Calreth commander inside chose to fight rather than surrender. It was a short fight. With the control center captured, Minseo's team turned the platform's weapons against other Calreth positions. One by one, the defensive platforms fell. Some were destroyed. Others were captured. The ring of orbital defenses began to collapse. Captain Jiwan commanded her carrier group in the southern sector. Her tactical display showed her fighters engaging enemy vessels across a massive area. Reports came in constantly. Losses, victories, damage reports, requests for support. She processed it all, making quick decisions, moving her forces like pieces on a chessboard. Wing Commander Junho, I need you to punch a hole through their defensive line at coordinates Delta 4, she ordered. Battle Group 5 will push through once you've cleared the way. Junho acknowledged and led his wing into the attack. 500 fighters against a Calreth defensive cluster of 50 ships. The odds seemed even. But human pilots had one advantage the Calreth could never match. They fought for something bigger than orders or duty. They fought for the memory of 2,300,000 murdered souls. The fighter attack was devastating. Moving too fast for the larger Calreth ships to track effectively, Junho's pilots tore through the defensive line. Ships exploded or went dead in space. Within 30 minutes, the hole was open. Battle Group 5 pushed through, its massive dreadnoughts advancing on the inner defensive shell. The battle raged for 72 hours without pause. Crews fought until they collapsed from exhaustion, then were replaced by backup crews who continued the fight. Ships that ran low on ammunition retreated briefly to reload, then returned to the battle. The human fleet was a machine of war that never stopped, never slowed, never relented. The Calreth fought with desperate courage. They knew this was their last chance. If they lost here, they lost everything. Ships that should have retreated for repairs stayed in the fight. Damaged vessels rammed human ships when their weapons failed. Pilots flew one-way missions, sacrificing themselves to take out key targets. But courage wasn't enough. Sacrifice wasn't enough. The humans were simply too many, too well-coordinated, too determined. For every human ship destroyed, 3 more took its place. The Calreth fleet was dying. On the 3rd day of battle, the Calreth defensive formation finally broke. The outer shell had been completely destroyed. The middle shell was fragmenting under sustained assault. The inner shell, directly over Calth Prime, was the only defensive line still intact. Admiral Yuna ordered a pause in the fighting. She sent another message to the Calreth leadership. You have lost. Your fleet is destroyed. Your defenses are broken. Surrender now and the killing stops. Your civilians will be spared. Your cities will not be bombarded. But your military leaders must face justice. Deep in their bunker, the Calreth High Command argued. Some wanted to surrender. Others wanted to fight on. Their military advisors told them the truth. They could not win. It was mathematically impossible. Even if every remaining Calreth ship fought perfectly, they were too outnumbered. But the leaders who had ordered the attack on New Haven refused to surrender. They knew what justice meant. They would be tried for their crimes. They would be found guilty. They would be executed. They chose to doom their entire fleet rather than face that fate. The battle resumed. The final Calreth defensive shell fought with the desperation of the doomed. They knew they were dying. They knew their cause was lost. But they had their orders, and Calreth culture demanded obedience. It took another 24 hours to break the inner shell. Human ships paid a heavy price for every kilometer gained, but gain they did, advancing slowly and inevitably toward the planet. When the last Calreth battleship exploded, the defense of Calth Prime ended. 187,000 Calreth warships had been destroyed. The remaining 13,000 surrendered when their leadership could no longer be reached. Human losses were heavy. 23,000 ships destroyed, over 2 million casualties. Every loss hurt. Every name would be remembered. But humanity had won. Admiral Una sent Marines to the planet's surface to arrest the Calreth High Command. They were found in their bunker, still arguing about whether to fight or surrender. The choice was no longer theirs to make. The war was over. Justice could finally begin. 3 months after the Battle of Calth Prime, a war crimes tribunal was established on the planet's surface. The building chosen was the Calreth Hall of Justice, their own Supreme Court. Human engineers repaired the damage from the battle and set up the necessary equipment. If the Calreth were to be judged, they would be judged in their own house of law. Prosecutor Hyejin stood before the tribunal. She was a lawyer from Earth who had volunteered for this duty. Behind her sat the accused, 7 members of the Calreth High Command who had ordered the attack on New Haven. They sat in restraints, their forearms bound, their scaled faces showing various emotions. Some looked defiant. Others looked afraid. One looked resigned to his fate. The tribunal consisted of judges from multiple human colonies and 3 neutral alien species who had agreed to observe and verify the proceedings were fair. Humanity wanted the galaxy to know this was justice, not revenge. Hyejin began her presentation. She showed images of New Haven before the attack. Happy families in parks, students in schools, farmers working in fields. She showed the communication logs, the peaceful messages the colony sent right up until the moment the Calreth fleet appeared in orbit. Then she showed the after images, the melted cities, the poisoned atmosphere, the complete absence of life. She played the final transmission from New Haven, a voice crying out as orbital weapons struck. The voice cut off mid-sentence. 2,300,000 people, Hyejin said quietly. That is the cost of the orders these beings gave. Not soldiers, not threats. Peaceful civilians building a life on a distant world. They were given no warning, no chance to evacuate, no opportunity to surrender. They were simply erased from existence. She turned to face the accused. The defense will argue this was a military decision, that New Haven was too close to Calreth territory, that they felt threatened. But we have their own communications, their own words. They called it a demonstration. They wanted to make humanity afraid. They chose the most vulnerable, most peaceful target they could find. This was not war. This was murder on an incomprehensible scale. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The defense lawyers, both Calreth and human volunteers, argued every point they could. They talked about cultural differences, about misunderstandings, about the fog of war. But the evidence was overwhelming. The Calreth High Command had deliberately targeted civilians. They had done it knowingly. They had done it to terrorize humanity into submission. The verdict was unanimous, guilty of crimes against sentient life. The sentence was death. It would be carried out according to human military law, by firing squad, quick and clean. No torture, no suffering, just justice. On the day of execution, Admiral Una attended. She felt she owed it to New Haven's dead to witness this moment. The 7 Calreth leaders were led to a courtyard. They were allowed final words. Most remained silent. One spoke. We underestimated you. That was our fatal error. May our deaths teach our people a lesson we could not learn. The execution was carried out. 7 beings who had ordered the death of millions paid with their own lives. It didn't bring back the dead. It didn't heal the wounds. But it was justice, and sometimes justice is all you can achieve. While the trial proceeded, the real work of aftermath began. Admiral Una oversaw the dismantling of the Calreth military. Every dreadnought was scrapped. Every weapons platform was dismantled. Every military shipyard was converted to civilian production. The Calreth were allowed to keep 3,000 ships for system defense, enough to protect against pirates but not enough to threaten anyone. This was not revenge. This was ensuring it could never happen again. The Calreth had proven they could not be trusted with overwhelming military power. That power was taken from them permanently. Captain G1 was assigned to oversee the conversion of the Velcron shipyards. She walked through the massive facilities with Calreth engineers, discussing what could be built there instead of weapons, medical ships, colony transports, research vessels, things that built up civilization instead of tearing it down. One Calreth engineer, a female named Kelrath, asked her, "Do you hate us for what our leaders did?" G1 considered the question carefully. "I hate what was done. I hate that so many died. But you didn't kill anyone. Most Calreth didn't even know the truth about New Haven. I don't hate you. I pity you. Your leaders started a war you couldn't win and destroyed your military power for a generation. Your people will pay the price of their arrogance for decades. Kelrath nodded slowly. Many of us feel the same. We were told humans were weak, easy to frighten. Now we know the truth. You are the opposite of weak. Commander Soyon led a diplomatic initiative that surprised many. She proposed that the Calreth join a new organization, the Galactic Concordat. It would be a federation of species committed to peaceful coexistence and mutual defense. The Calreth would have a voice in galactic affairs, but they would have to accept certain rules. No building large military fleets, no territorial expansion through force, disputes resolved through negotiation, not war. Many humans opposed this idea. They wanted the Calreth punished, isolated, made to suffer, but Soyon argued for practicality. Isolation breeds resentment. Resentment breeds future conflict. If we include them in a system where everyone benefits from peace, they become invested in maintaining that peace. We don't just want to win this war. We want to make sure there's never another one. After much debate, the Concordat was established. The Calreth joined, along with 15 other species. Humanity became the guarantor of the Concordat's security, their vast fleet ensuring no member would threaten another. It was a new order for the galaxy, built on the ashes of the old. 5 years after the fall of New Haven, a memorial was completed on the site of the destroyed colony. The entire planet had been terraformed again, brought back to life through massive environmental engineering. At the center of the main settlement, a monument was built from the fused glass of the destroyed buildings. Marine Lieutenant Minseo, now Captain Minseo, attended the dedication ceremony. She stood before the monument with thousands of others. On its surface, every name of every person who died was inscribed. 2,300,000 names. She found her brother's name, Taijin An, teacher, age 29. She touched his name gently. "We did it," she whispered. "We made sure it meant something. We made sure it never happens again." Admiral Yuna, retired now, stood beside her. The old admiral had served her purpose. She had led the largest military operation in history. She had won a war. Now she spent her time teaching at the military academy, ensuring future officers understood both the power and the responsibility of command. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Minseo asked her. Yuna looked at the monument, at the names stretching across its surface. "We did what was necessary. We showed the galaxy that humanity protects its own. We also showed that we don't become monsters to fight monsters. We could have glassed Calth Prime. We could have done to them what they did to New Haven, but we didn't. That matters." A new colony ship appeared in the sky above them. It was heading to a nearby system to establish a new settlement. The ship's name was painted on its hull in large letters, Second Chance. Humanity was still expanding, still building, still dreaming of a better future. But now, 627,000 warships stood watch over human space. They were scattered across 215 colonies, silent guardians maintaining the peace. They were a promise and a warning. A promise to humanity: we will protect you. A warning to the galaxy: we will never allow another New Haven. Captain Doyen, now Admiral Doyen, commanded the defense perimeter around the rebuilt New Haven. He took the assignment specifically because it felt right. He had been the first to see the colony's destruction. Now he would be the last line of defense to ensure it stayed safe. His ships patrolled constantly. His crews trained endlessly. They would never be caught unprepared again. The lesson had been learned in blood and fire. Peace is precious, but it must be defended by those willing to fight for it. On Earth, in the Great Memorial Plaza, a wall listed the names of every human soldier who died in the war. 23,000 ships lost, over 2 million casualties. Each name represented a life, a family, a future that would never be. They had paid the price to ensure humanity's survival, but they had won. Humanity had faced an enemy that sought to erase them through terror. That enemy had been defeated, judged, and prevented from ever threatening anyone again. The galaxy had learned a lesson written across thousands of light years of space. Humanity can be peaceful. Humanity prefers peace, but humanity is not weak. A decade after New Haven's destruction, the Calreth sent an official delegation to Earth. They came to offer formal apologies for the actions of their previous leadership. They came to honor the dead of New Haven. They came to acknowledge their species' guilt. The ceremony was difficult for everyone. Many humans wanted nothing to do with the Calreth, but others understood the importance of accepting the apology. Not forgiveness, not forgetting, but acknowledging that current Calreth were not responsible for what past Calreth had done. The Calreth ambassador, a dignified elder named Prethkor, spoke at the memorial. We cannot undo what was done. We cannot bring back those who were lost. We can only ensure that our species learns from this tragedy.